way. And so people sometimes say, well, I don't want to lose everything, and you have a different sort of loss rate on it. But you might have a lossless compression like zip. And a zip file will zip up your data, compress it down, but when you unzip it, you get exactly back what you put in. Because it's got to be something like an executable, or it's got to be a film that doesn't sort of contain that. So you've got to think about that perhaps with the accuracy of what you're sending. Can it be lossy? Is it okay that you don't send every single temperature to it? Or do you have to send it? There's no right and wrong to any one solution to this. It's just you've got to apply it to your individual application. Or completeness. How much data is included within that? Does it take so long to compute that aggregated data that it means your data's out of touch with it? Like as it's compressing it to send it, and then you send it and you decompress it at the other side, that may take you end up with sort of like choppy video. The sort of thing that happens when you broadcast video out there, they're perhaps compressing it to send it and you're decompressing it at the other side, and then it's not sort of managing to keep up before the next one's in for it. So there might be latency to cope with. That actual advantage of aggregation is in general to reduce the size of the data. Because that's the big problem with IoT, is battery usage, which typically comes from communication. So you're wanting to reduce the size of data that you can send through a trade-off between all those different aspects. Ideally, doing that aggregation fairly close to the source. Now, a thing that we'll be looking at just in a couple of weeks, where we'll really leave today, this publish-subscribe model, is an alternative way to broadcast your data out. It's quite a familiar design pattern, the publish-subscribe model, rather similar to, say, having an email distribution list. You have an email distribution list, say, for this particular class, and I say, right, anybody who subscribes to that email distribution list, every time I send an email to it, everybody receives it at some point. Or people in the chat room. Somebody in the chat room sends a message, everybody who's in that chat room receives it. Now this idea of the publish-subscribe gives you the concept of a publisher who can send the messages out, and people who subscribe to it, and they will automatically get the message, whatever you send out. Now the message isn't like a text, hi there, how you doing, great to see you here again, all that sort of blur, whatever. It's typically sort of sending out some sensor. So you might have a sensor publisher and people subscribing to that particular one, so that every time it changes, you automatically get an update. Now that's a problem with the current model that we've got, is sending it off to the database, because your motor has got to proactively say, what's my new value? And then it's got to keep asking that, what's my new value? What's my new value? Have I changed? And it's like and I give this analogy, but it's like the kids in the back of the car saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? You get sick of all this message coming through, and it's much better if they would just learn to understand that when you get there, you'll tell them. When some significant event happens, when you're driving them, you'll tell them. And you become the publisher, they subscribe to what you're saying. Now we'll look at this MQTT, as I say, in a later session, and we'll have a full sort of lab on it. And it's certainly a simpler way of broadcasting out your sensor data. It might be something that you prefer to use in your assignment. Because in your assignment, you've got to get a sensor and actuator talking together. And you might want to use one or the other. Depends on whether or not you want to store the data, because these typically don't store the data. But we'll look at that as and when it comes. Anyway, we'll leave it there for this week. I'll pick up on next week on the metadata part. Thank you. I think the register's down here at the front if you want to sign off on it.
Yes, G. Yes, G. Yes, G.